Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Court channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. Today, I'll be reacting to my second scary storyteller channel for y'all, and it's Dark Reality. And the video that I picked out is 3 Disturbing True Home Alone Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights back off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag. Oh, good, okay, here we go.
I had recently graduated from college. I was a marketing major, and I was having a hard time finding a job. I didn't have anything lined up for me right after graduation like some of my peers.
I know that could be a bummer. You go to school for a specific job, but then once you're out of college, the career choice that you want is not lined up for you because nobody else ain't hiring for your specific career skill right now. So you just have to turn into working at a regular 9-to-5 job until something does come up. But anyway, let's continue with the story, see what happens next.
So I did what most people do and moved back in with my parents. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty weird moving back in after being away for so long. For as long as I can remember, it was just me and my dog, and now I was living with my mom and dad again. It sucked. I normally don't talk about this very much, but when I was younger, I had a natural intuition that most people don't have. I had some kind of ability to speak to ghosts, or, at the very least, see them. I was that kid who was always talking to the wall and claimed to be talking to a ghost. I had no idea why I had this ability, but I knew I did. I remember genuinely feeling a presence and making a connection with it.
Man, if I had that ability, I'd be spooked out of my mind because it'd be creepy just seeing deceased people walking around wherever you go, including your house. But then everybody else in your family don't see it and think you're crazy.
I always had to make some kind of spiritual or emotional connection with it before I was able to communicate. It's really weird to explain, but I can still do it. The ability never went away. It's a little bit more difficult now, but I've become very interested in it, especially toward the end of my college career. I spent many nights meditating and trying to form connections with the spirits around me. So here's the thing. My parents had actually moved when I was in college. I never really felt a strong connection to their new home. Honestly, I didn't really like it, and I had never spent more than a couple of nights there. Even during the summer, I would stay at my apartment in the city because, well, why not? And again, you can see why it was so weird for me and my dog to move back into my parents' house because I had never really lived in this house. It's not that it was particularly negative or anything, but anyone who is in tune with their mind and body and moves around a lot will remember that it is distressing.
I can see it being distressing if your parents moved into another house and it's not the one you grew up in and you were moving back in with them. It would take time to get adjusted to the new atmosphere.
Even if there's nothing problematic about the move. You can be 100% financially, spiritually, and physically secure and fine in every aspect of your life, but moving into a new home will invariably cause some distress. There was one Friday night when my parents had gone out for dinner. They wanted to have a night away from all the regular worries of day-to-day life. I have 2 other brothers, and they're both in high school, so you can understand why my parents would need a break. My brothers, being my brothers, both went out to sleep over at a friend's house. They were only a year apart, so they hung out in the same friend group, and they all had this weird thing where they would sleep over at each other's houses and play video games all night. That left me and my dog Dorian home alone until my parents got home, at least. I remember feeling really freaked out, not in a crazy way or anything, but something just felt off. Like there was something in the air. It's really hard to explain. I remember being in my room, reading an article on the best ways to get a job. It was about 9 o'clock at night. My parents probably wouldn't be home until 11 or 12. I remember being really into this one article, taking notes on things I could do to improve my resume. And then I heard it. My dog made one really weird noise. It was almost like a bark, but also a whimper. I knew something was wrong because he very rarely made noises. I rushed downstairs to see what was going on. He was sitting there perfectly fine, as if nothing had happened. This was extremely unusual. I looked around the house frantically. He had food. He'd just gone to the bathroom, and nothing around the house seemed to be out of place. I just chalked it up to him not liking being at my parents' house. It sounded rational enough. I made my way back upstairs to get back into the job hunting grind, and then I heard that very same noise again, maybe 15 minutes later.
Okay, I would sympathize for him about his dog acting the way he's describing them acting like. Yes, dogs could probably get agitated too, just like humans, if they're in a new place and not adjusted to it yet. But if it happens twice, I guarantee you that they're trying to warn you about someone is literally outside your house, so he needs to be on high alert at all times.
This time it really unnerved me. This was very out of character for my dog, and I had this odd sense of impending doom. I ran downstairs and looked around. For a minute there, I didn't even see my dog. I didn't know where he was. I called out to Dorian, but he didn't answer. Then, I made the worst discovery of my entire existence. I realized that my dog was dead. He was just lying on the floor motionless. It was so weird because he was only about 2 or 3 years old. I closely examined his body, and it did not appear as if he had been in a fight or struggled in some kind.
Holy crap, that's a scary situation to walk into. Ghost scared him, since he said there ain't no mark on the body. But that would be creepy to see.
No blood, no bruises, no puncture wounds. I remember feeling really sad. That sense of fear and adrenaline never went away, though. I waited for my parents to get home. I was really psyched out, and I didn't know what else I could do. I felt like calling the police was a bit too extreme, and I didn't want to be the college graduate turned adult who moves back in with his parents for a week and needs them to rush home because he is scared. This all happened a while back. I still can't explain how my dog died. I ended up landing a job a couple of days later in a nearby city. I was really happy to have moved out of that house. It freaked me out pretty bad. And after an incident like that, my parents can visit me anytime in the future.
Yes, because he don't want to go back in that house to visit them. And I don't blame him. It's scary thinking that his dog died in that house while he was job hunting. But if he didn't hear nobody breaking in to attack the dog, then I guarantee you that the house is probably haunted and they spooked the dog to the point where he had a heart attack. I mean, that's my theory. But I'm glad he was able to get a job that he was looking for and move out of that house so he won't feel like he's got a bunch of anxiety or getting paranoid in that house ever again. But anyway, let's get to story number 2.
My two brothers and I lived with my mom. I'm the oldest of the three, and my mom generally relied on me to get things done. This naturally turned me into an adult from a very early age.
Right.
Even to this day, my mom talks about feeling guilty for having to thrust adulthood on me so early on. She thinks that I didn't have a childhood. Maybe she's right. As you might imagine, my dad wasn't really in the picture. He was an abusive drunk. And when I say abusive, I mean seriously abusive. Up until the time I was 10, he lived with us. And whenever he would get drunk, he would beat the living crap out of us. It was always terrifying. The only saving grace was the fact that he wasn't always drunk or had alcohol in the house. In fact, there were sometimes months at a time when he would go without drinking, and he was an otherwise pretty decent person. For all that was wrong with my dad, he would have probably been close to an ideal human being if it had not been for his rampant alcoholism and the demon inside of him that came out when he got drunk. The incident that got my mom to finally divorce him was horrendous. I had been in my room playing video games or something, and he was in the living room. My mom had just gotten home from getting groceries. He accused her of having an affair at the time, and of course this wasn't true, but he didn't believe it. He kept screaming at her that she was lying. It escalated to the point that he pinned her down on the floor and said that he saw her nose growing and then grabbed a screwdriver and cut into my mom's nose with it.
Oh, heck no. If I saw a man doing that to a woman, I would have tackled him down to the ground because he ain't a man at all for touching a woman like that. I can see why your mom divorced him. If he's an alcoholic drunk and keeps on blaming her for having an affair, then just ditch his butt and get out of there. But I can see why the son here said his mom felt bad for pushing adulthood on him. Well, you didn't have a choice, which is sad to hear.
There is still a scar from that day. Well, that all went down when I was about 10, so this was about 5 years later. My mom was bringing my two younger brothers on some kind of Boy Scout trip. They were both in the Boy Scouts and always felt left out because all the other kids had a dad. My mom's guilt drove her to volunteer and help out whenever she could, so she went with my two brothers for this weekend camping trip with the Boy Scouts. She really wanted me to go with them because she felt uncomfortable having me alone in the house. I insisted that I was mature enough to do it, and honestly, I didn't even have friends that I could party with if I wanted to. She eventually gave in and let me have my way. I remember being in my bedroom playing my PlayStation. It was a pretty typical Saturday afternoon, but then I heard a car pull up. I didn't know who it was at first, and I immediately got really panicked that I was going to have to call the cops. My bedroom window doesn't have a really good view of the driveway, so it took me a second, but after studying the part of the car that I could see, I recognized it as my father's car. I was immediately mortified. I was on bad terms with him, and my mom had a really serious restraining order put on him after they had separated. I got really nervous, and I was not sure what to do. He didn't come into the house for a few minutes, and I immediately started wondering what he was up to. I did the only thing that I could think of and cracked my window so I could hear what was going on outside. I thought that if I could hear what he was doing, I would have a better idea. I immediately recognized that he was crying. His whimpering sounded really intense. I hadn't heard from him in years, and my mom said that we would never see him again. But here he was, crying in our driveway.
Okay, he's not supposed to be there since he's got a restraining order, and yet he's there. And he's now outside of their driveway crying. Either he feels bad or this is all just to act, just to see if his boy can talk to him about it. Probably might try to kidnap him. You never know. Call the police.
He paced around for a few more minutes before finally standing still. I could hear his crying get louder. Then he screamed, "Pop!" All I heard was a gunshot. The second that I heard the gunshot, I immediately knew what had happened. I ran outside anyway. I looked down at my father's lifeless body on the driveway cement, blood everywhere. As traumatic as it may have been, I didn't cry. I didn't act emotional or anything. I just called the police. They got there a few minutes later and took me into custody. They wanted to keep me safe and secure until they could contact my mom. The rest of the story played out exactly as you would imagine. My mom apologized profusely. I had to answer some questions for the police. Nothing out of the ordinary. I don't really know what to make of the situation. I don't have much sympathy for the guy. Part of me is kind of happy that he killed himself. But looking back, I just kind of wish that he had done it where I wouldn't have had to be a witness. The entire experience made me never want to stay home by myself ever again. It's been a long time since this whole thing had gone down, and even now, if I have to stay home by myself, I will make an effort to leave the house or invite a friend over. I won't stay there alone. A couple of years have passed since this entire situation, and I can't help but think that it was all for the better. My dad was a seriously destructive human being, and I know this might sound horrible, but I wish that he killed himself sooner. For those out there who haven't lived with a toxic and negative parental figure, consider yourself extremely lucky. The tribulations that I had to endure at the hands of my father fostered a lot of rage inside of me.
And again, I'm sorry you went through all that, but you really shouldn't wish death so suddenly on a person that was negative towards you. Karma will always bite back on them. But yeah, you're right. That is kind of sad and disturbing that he would come to your house, cry, and then delete himself right there in the driveway. But I'm just glad that he's out of harm's reach physically with him and don't have to worry about him coming back anymore.
This happened quite a while ago when I was home alone with just my dog. After all this time, I'm still not sure what happened. It was really strange, and I have no idea what this man actually wanted. So I was watching TV one night at about 11 p.m. when I heard a car pull up outside, and the engine shut off. I figured it was obviously a neighbor, but my nosy dog wanted to have a look and went to the window. He had kind of messed the blinds up when he went to look, so I got up to fix them. When I did, I noticed a car parked on the street across from my house and my neighbor's house. I couldn't really make out any details, but it looked like the driver was still sitting in the car. I didn't really think anything of it. I got a drink and went back to watching TV. Quite a while had passed since I fixed the blinds, but I'm not sure how long. I'd guess 15 to 20 minutes. Out of nowhere, I thought I heard a tapping at the door. Not a knock. It was much lighter and very quiet. My dog had sat up to look at the door, and I paused the TV when the same tapping then started on the window. I opened the blinds a little and saw a man standing there. I couldn't make out his face properly, and he immediately walked back to the door and started tapping at it again. This doesn't sound very frightening, and I'm not sure why, but I suddenly had a really awful feeling.
Hey, I'll be frightened and having an awful feeling if he kept coming back and tapping on the window for no reason at all, trying to get you to open up the door. Never know, this person might be planning on robbing or kidnapping you.
I felt absolutely terrified and had no idea why. The tapping at the door never stopped, but something in my head was saying if I opened the door to him, then something really bad would happen.
Yes,
I
don't
went
open the
upstairs
door.
to open a window to ask what he wanted. It felt safer doing this. He said in a really quiet voice that he was delivering pizza and told me how much it cost. I felt so stupid for being frightened and told him I didn't order pizza. I guessed he was speaking quietly and knocking lightly so he didn't disturb my neighbors. My dog had followed me upstairs and was letting out the odd growl and bark, which isn't really unusual for him. I was trying to shush him when the man downstairs told me he had the correct address, and I better get downstairs now and open the door to pay what I owed, and collect my food before it got cold. I was really confused because I most definitely didn't order any food, and began telling him that again when I noticed he didn't have a pizza. He wasn't carrying anything at all. I told him again that he had the wrong address, and he got really angry. He kept telling me to open the door. He was going between angry and sort of trying to persuade me to go back downstairs. I asked him where the pizza was. He said he had a hold of it. It was really dark, but he definitely didn't have anything in his hands. My dog was really making quite a bit of fuss at this point, and the stranger had turned into a broken record. Come downstairs. Open the door. Come downstairs and open the door. All the noise must have alerted my neighbor, who did open his front door, and the man didn't say a word but practically ran across the street to the car that I had heard pull up a while ago. He went back to the car empty-handed. I have no idea what he wanted, but he certainly wasn't a delivery driver. It really freaked me out as well that my dog is quite obviously a large breed, and the man saw him through the window. He wasn't deterred at all. It seems even stranger and less random that he actually drove to my house as though he had planned on showing up.
Thank God the neighbor opened up his door and made that guy run. Because if he didn't, this guy probably would have lost his cool and pound on his door until it gave in and probably attack him. But yeah, I'm surprised that he did not get deterred by seeing his large dog in the house. Probably thinking he could tackle it down to the ground too. Who knows? So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more dark reality content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Court channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day.